တောင်းများမဲလိုက်ပါအချိန်တန်တော့ပြောင်းလဲမဲ့ဘဝတင်မှာမေးစင်ပြေမလားချင်းများကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြာရင်ငါနဲ့မေးချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြာရင်ငါနဲ့မေးလမ်းခွဲရတော့မယ်အကျိုးနေအောင်ကိုယ်စီသိထားတယ်အချစ်တွေဆုံးရှုံးတော့မယ်အချိန်လေးသူပြောနိုင်မှလေတို့ရဲ့တဲ့အပီးဆုံးပြီးငါသိချစ်ခဲ့တာမင်းအသီးဆုံးမင်းချစ်တွေငါနာလေတို့နဲ့ရောက်ရဲ့ကွာအများဆုံးသူညီနိုင်ခဲ့တဲ့အချစ်ရဲ့မင်းနာတော့မေးမရဘူးသူပြောနိုင်မှလဲတို့အိမ်မဲ့တွေ့ခဲ့ပြီငါချစ်ခဲ့ဘူးတယ်မမေးပါနဲ့တော်ရမှနေခဲ့ခွေရတော့မယ်အကျိုးနေအောင်ကိုယ်စီသိထားတယ်အချစ်ရဲ့မင်းနာတော့မေးမရဘူးသူပြောနိုင်မှလဲတို့ရဲ့တဲ့ပြီးဆုံးပြီးမချစ်ခဲ့ဘူးတော့မေးပါနဲ့တော်ရမှနေခဲ့စုတောင်းများမဲလိုက်ပါအချိန်တန်တော့ပြောင်းလဲမဲ့ဘဝတင်မှာမေးစင်ပြေမလားချ များကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြရင်ငါနဲ့မင်းOh babyပေးစကကောင်းဆုံးကိုငါမြင်တာနင်းမြင်နိုင်မလားချိန်များကိုရင်မတော့ဝဲချကိုစီစူတောင်းများမဲလိုက်ပါအချိန်တန်တော့ပြောင်းလဲမဲ့ဘဝတဲ့မှာမင်းစင်ပြေမလားချိန်များကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြရင်ငါနဲ့မင်းလမ်းခွဲရတော့မယ်ဒုနေအောင်ကိုစီတီချတဲ့အချစ်တွေဆုံးရှုံးတော့မယ့်အချိန်လေးသူပြောနိုင်မှလဲတို့ရဲ့တဲ့ပြီးဆုံးပြီငါသိချစ်ခဲ့တဲ့မင်းအသီးဆုံးမင်းချစ်တွေငါနာလဲဒုနေအောင်ရဲ့ကွာအများဆုံးသူညီနိုင်ခဲ့တဲ့အချစ်ရဲ့မင်းနာတော့မေးမရဘူးသူပြောနိုင်မှလဲတို့အိမ်မဲ့တွေ့ခဲ့ပြီငါချစ်ခဲ့ဘူးတဲ့မမေးပါနဲ့တော်ရမှနေခဲ့ခွေရတော့မယ်ဒုနေအောင်ကိုစီတီချတဲ့အချစ်ရဲ့မင်းနာတော့မေးမရဘူးသူပြောနိုင်မှလဲတို့ရဲ့တဲ့ပြီးဆုံးပြီငါချစ်ခဲ့ဘူးတဲ့မေးပါနဲ့တော်ရမှနေခဲ့စူတောင်းများမဲလိုက်ပါအချိန်တန်တော့ပြောင်းလဲမဲ့ဘဝတင်မှာမေးစင်ပြေမလားချင်းများကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြရင်ငါနဲ့မင်း ချင်းများကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြရင်ငါနဲ့မင်းဟုတ်မဲပါလားလမ်းခွဲရတော့မယ်ဒုနေအောင်ကိုစီသိချတဲ့အချစ်တွေဆုံးရှုံးတော့မယ်အချိန်လေးသူပြောနိုင်မှလေတို့ရဲ့တဲ့အပီးဆုံးပြီးငါသိချစ်ခဲ့တဲ့မင်းအသီးဆုံးမင်းချစ်တွေငါနာလေဒုနေအောင်ရဲ့ကွာအများဆုံးသူညီနိုင်ခဲ့တဲ့အချစ်ရဲ့မင်းနာတော့မေးမရဘူးသူပြောနိုင်မှလေတို့အိမ်မဲ့တွေ့ခဲ့ပြီငါချစ်ခဲ့ဘူးတယ်မမေးပါနဲ့တော်ရမှနေခဲ့ခွေရတော့မယ်ဒုနေအောင်ကိုစီသိထားတဲ့အချစ်ရဲ့မင်းနာတော့မေးမရဘူးသူပြောနိုင်မှလဲတို့ရဲ့တဲ့ပြီးဆုံးပြီးငါချစ်ခဲ့ဘူးတယ်မေးပါနဲ့တော်ရမှနေခဲ့စုတောင်းများမဲလိုက်ပါအချိန်တန်တော့ပြောင်းလဲမဲ့ဘဝတင်မှာမေးစင်ပြေမလားချင်းများကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြရင်ငါနဲ့မေohမေးပါလားပေးစကကောင်းဆုံးကိုနားမြတ်တာနေမြင်နိုင်မလားချင်းများကိုရင်မတော့ဝဲထားကိုစီစုတောင်းများမဲလိုက်ပါအချိန်တန်တော့ပြောင်းလဲမဲ့ဘဝတင်မှာမေးစင်ပြေမလားချင်းများကိုချိန်ဟာနိုင်ယူထားကြရင် 的家小多情，因为累嘛来战多人，原来路数年过可你话的，大被没来都没家不归，朋友要累差一个。想陪他也表归比归，为要那美丽，为过你来，每夜喇叭还有谁呢？今那瑞哈的来面路，我米个也别那你的。上我们内来，数年宝贵那山绵野，拉面索拉一面里呀，手来的拉嘛都推给家里，为要拉面来，为过内来，每夜喇叭还有谁呢？空说呢，苗里米耶，那面切的家小多情，因为累嘛来苗偏差，变累，吵让我的带过的心累，变累。空说呢，苗里米的，拉面切的家小多情，因为累嘛来战多人，原来路数年过可你话的，大被没来都没家不归，朋友要累。差一个，想陪他也表归比归，为要那美丽，为过你来， သက်ကွယ်ခြင်းနဲ့ပင်လေဆောင်ကမနေနိုင်စူညံပေါက်ခွဲနဲ့ဆိုင်မြဲရင်လာမင်းဆိုရာအိမ်မြလေးရာမစုံနိုင်တဲ့လမ်းမှာတို့တွေ့ခဲ့ကြတယ်ဝေရောက်လာမင်းလဲဝေကွာနေလားမင်းရလာပါရင်ခုန်စွာနဲ့မျောလင်းမိရဲ့လာမင်းချေသာပြတ်လျှောက်သွားခြင်းရင်ခွင်လဲမှာလိုက်မြောက်ပြင်းတာပင်လေထောင်ရလို့သာအသက်ကွယ်ခြင်းနဲ့ပင်လေမင်းရဲ့ဝေလာမင်းရဲ့ဝေလာမင်းရဲ့ရင်ခုန်စွာနဲ့မျောလင်းမိတယ်လာမင်းချေသာပြတ်လျှောက်သွားခြင်းရင်ခွင်လဲမှာလိုင်းချမ်းသွားတယ်ပင်လေလို့ဆူညံကိုခေါ်နေပါတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့လည်းသူမချဘူးခွေပုံရိပ်ရောင်တွေထားရခဲ့တယ်ရှောင်းဖဲကားရဲ့ပျောက်ကွယ်ပြီးခွေဝေရောက်လာမင်းလဲဝေကွာနေလားမင်းရဲ့လာပါယူစေတယ်ကျင်နာတွေဟာဒီလိုက်မြလို့အော်မီကားရဲ့အပြေကနေဆောင်ကမနေနိုင်စူညံပေါက်ခွဲနဲ့ဆိုင်မြဲရင်လာမင်းဆိုရာအိမ်မြလေးရာစုံ ngoda ekwe bele
ကျေးဇူးများတင်ပါတယ်ဒီနေ့ကိုဒီကူးကလာရောက်ပြီးတော့အားပေးတဲ့အတွက်အများကြီးကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်ဒီနေ့ရောက်လာကြတဲ့ရှီယာဘော်ရာဒီဘက်ရှီယာဘော်ရာဒီလေယာဟိုနောက်ကဒီဘက်တောင်ဘုံပေါ်ဘိုးဘက်ကတကယ်ကြီးတဲ့ကိုလုံးကျေးဇူးများကြီးတင်ပါတယ်ဟိုနောက်ကတကယ်ကြီးကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်
ကြရမယ့်ဖြစ်တွေဒါအိမ်မလားဝေလွင်ခြင်းများတွေရင်ကိုခွင်ချလာပါခဲ့တဲ့ဟာဒီကွယ်ကြီးရဲ့ကောင်းဒီမှာရတဲ့ကွယ်ပဲကျွေးခြေကိုကူလာဒါစီမဲရှုံးတွေရမကန်ရစုတွေ့ရုံလုံးမလို့နိုင်ဝေပင်တွေယေစုစိတ်တဲ့အိမ်မဆုံးများငါလေးဝေလုံးပြရမလားငါတန်တာရင်ဝေပဲဒါချီရဲ့အတားများကြီးငါလေးဗီဒီယိုထဲတွက်မဲ့ရှင်အစိုးရချင်းအိမ်ချီရဲ့အတားငါတို့ပြစ်ကူပါစေအနေလုံးမရတဲ့မိကိုဘယ်လိုနာစီလုံးနိုင်လောင်ကျွမ်းသွားလိုက်စမ်းအတော်ရပြစ်ကူပါစေကာဒီလာရဲ့မုန်းကငါခံနိုင်မလားအေးစကွာမဲ့ဘဝတွေဒူခံစားမလားဟိုဝေးသွားရတော့မဲ့တူဒါမိုင်းမဲ့ခြင်းလေလားအတူပဲရွေးဝင်ရှိတယ်ဟိုဝေးဆုံးโอ้စိတ်တဲ့အိမ်မဆုံးများငါလေးအဝေးဆုံးပြေးရမလားငါတန်တာရင်နဲ့ပွေပဲဒါချီရဲ့အတားများကြီးငါလေးဗီဒီယိုထဲတွက်တဲ့ရှင်အစိုးရချင်းနေအချီရဲ့အတားငါတို့ပြစ်ကူပန်းစီအနေလုံးမရတဲ့မိကိုဘယ်လိုနာစီလုံးနိုင်လောင်ကျွမ်းသွားလိုက်စမ်းအတော်ရပြစ်ကူပန်းစီCome on! I'm in there. ရှစ်ခုံနိုင်ခွေဒီမှာခွေသာငါရဲ့ဝိညာဉ်အောင်နာခွေမခေါ်နဲ့Come on, come on, come on! Don't know that I'm I'm something she put you sent le marunia you thought you would play
March 4th, 2016.
You want me to read this?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. OMG, he's an idiot.
May 4th, 2016.
Now the pressure really starts to finish MYE.
July 19th, 2016.
Hi, how was Trump other than a douche? Melania?
July 21st, 2016.
Trump is a disaster. I have no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be.
August 6th, 2016.
I don't believe I wrote this text, sir.
Okay, it's been attributed to you, so we'll go on to the next.
Incorrect.
August 8th, 2016.
Again.
And I'll preface it by saying this for context. Ms. Page said, not ever going to become president, right? Right?
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
Repeat that again.
No, he's not. We'll stop it.
August 15th, 2016.
I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40.
On October 20th, 2016.
I can't pull away what the, and I defer to the chairman whether
You
or
can
not
just
he'd
use
like me to
one
use
letter if you
profanity.
don't mind.
What the F happened to our country, Lise?
Okay, read it again that way.
Sir, did you not, was it
No, I
not
just wanted to
intelligible?
hear it
You
one
just
more
want to
time.
hear it for
Yeah.
me to repeat it?
Please.
Okay, sir. Sure. Happy to indulge you. I can't pull away what the F happened to our country, Lise.
Why in the world do you believe that this committee should not ask for the record of similar text from your private account to find out what else you might have said about insurance policies or about the President of the United States or investigation? That is a rhetorical question you need not answer, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, may I nonetheless answer?
You may respond briefly, even though he said it was a rhetorical question.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Congressman, what I think is critical, and I'm glad you brought up a lot of these because I would like to make the point that I made
I didn't
earlier.
bring them up. I just asked you to read your own words.
Sir, if I may, what is important is that these texts represent personal beliefs just like those that you'd find on my personal phone. What these texts do not represent is any act, any suggestion of an act, any consideration that we need to do this or not do this. And furthermore, I would encourage you, as I believe I forget who I said this to earlier this morning, you need to read these texts in the context of what was going on at the time. So when I make the comment about Trump having no idea how destabilizing his presidency would be, that came on the heels of a speech where then candidate Trump said he didn't know whether or not the United States should honor its commitment to mutual defense under NATO.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. That's not briefly. Mr. Chairman, in light of these actual...
No.
Give him that opportunity.
He should be permitted to answer his question. Everyone will suspend. I told the gentleman he could answer briefly. He has answered briefly. And
he has not finished answering.
We will now turn to the gentlewoman from Washington, D.C. for her questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In order to allow this witness to continue, let me ask a question. Mr. Strzok, you are a senior, or were a senior and experienced FBI staff person. Is that not right?
I would consider myself a senior and experienced FBI staff person, yes.
Now, you had been involved in the Mueller investigation of the last election involving Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump at the highest level. Is that not the case?
If you mean by highest level that I had interactions with those cases with the director and deputy director and senior staff of the Department of Justice, yes.
That's what I mean. Now, we've been reading from your personal phone and your official phone. Did it occur to you that your personal political messages, if they became public, might be misinterpreted in light of your role in the investigation?
Congresswoman, to be very honest, I didn't anticipate that because I never thought these texts would become public.
Well, even though they were, some of them were not on your personal phone.
Oh, correct. Yes, that's correct.
So that means anything that's on your official phone, of course, belongs to the public. So I just want to establish that this this confusion between your public and private phone is part of our problem here today. Now, as we hold this hearing, I just want to note for the record that President Trump is on his way to a very controversial meeting with Vladimir Putin. Let me ask you, sir, about a undisputed finding of the Intelligence Committee, and by that I mean the CIA, the NSA, the FBI. These people do not usually speak in such absolute terms, so hear them. We assess Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. We have a high confidence in these judgments. Are these conclusions familiar to you, sir?
They are.
Are you aware of any finding that undermines these conclusions of the three intelligence committees?
I am not.
The Senate committee on the other side of the Capitol, under the leadership of a Republican chairman, Richard Burr, and not split in the way our own Intelligence Committee here in the House, has made a bipartisan finding affirming the Intelligence Committee's assessments. And I want to quote just briefly from them that the three committees the Intelligence Commission assessment is a, quote, sound intelligence product. Now, let me indicate something that I had not known before preparing for this hearing, that they not only cited the usual context here in the United States, they quoted public Russian leadership commentary, Russian media reports, all aligned with the body of our intelligence reporting. Were you aware of the confluence of what the Russians were saying and what our own intelligence sources are saying?
I believe I understand your question to be between the intelligence community sources and methods and open source reporting, including those from Russia. Yes, I was aware of all those things coming together at the same time.
Do you have any reason to believe that the Senate Intelligence Committee or the NSA or the CIA or the FBI or the Office of the Division of Intelligence are on some kind of an effort to discredit President Donald Trump?
The gentlelady's time has expired, but you may answer the question.
No, not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady from the District of Columbia yields back. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Strzok, you were involved in investigating both the matter of Hillary Clinton's private email server and the so-called Russian collusion matter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Page was also involved in both those. Is that correct?
She was not a member of the investigative team for either. She was a senior staff member for Mr. McCabe, who I believe began
but somebody you were communicating with on a fairly regular basis
yes,
on these matters. Thank you. And you would agree, would you not, that both investigations were supposed to be fair and unbiased?
Yes, and that they were.
Yet you were both rooting for Hillary Clinton to win, and you both detested Donald Trump. Did you not?
I think that's fair to say.
Okay. And in fact, as we've learned, you apparently found Donald Trump's supporters detestable too, like those around Loudoun, Virginia, as we've already heard, whom you called ignorant blanks. I'm not going to say that here, and that you had visited a Southern Virginia Walmart and could smell the Trump support. Now, I have to say, when I read those communications and when I hear them here, those between the two of you, specifically what you had to say about Trump supporters, it reminded me of something that Hillary Clinton had said about Trump supporters. She found them, what did she call them? Deplorables. And I would submit that it was your and Hillary Clinton's smug view of Donald Trump's supporters that was truly deplorable. Don't you think that the American people, when they're paying your salaries, when they're paying for a fair and unbiased investigation by none other than the FBI, deserved a whole lot better than what those comments I just referred to reflect?
Congressman, two things. One, I absolutely regret the appearance of some of those texts and wish I would have said or phrased or not said at all some of the things I did. Two, I disagree completely with your attribution to my views of Trump supporters. I never said that. I expressed no such thing. There are millions and millions and millions of Americans who I deeply respect and honor who voted for Mr. Trump.
Here.
But I just
also,
want to correct a
interestingly,
mistake.
you told Ms. Page, and I'll quote here, "I loathe Congress," and she agreed. Now, you're probably in pretty good company there. A survey I saw a while back about Congress found us less popular than root canals and head lice and colonoscopies. And although we did beat out playground bullies and the Ebola virus, but this is not about us. It's about you and whether or not the American people can have the confidence in the investigations that you were involved in and whether you were fair and unbiased when you investigated both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Would you agree with that?
Sir, I appreciate that concern very much, and let me explain a little bit about that comment. I have the utmost respect for Congress, for its role in oversight, for its role in passing laws, for any of the functions. What I was stating in that comment was the efforts by some to turn legitimate oversight activity into unwarranted
we appreciate there's a
criticism of the FBI for the FBI doing nothing but doing its job.
There's a lot of us up here that don't like Congress particularly, too. So I would, there's probably a lot of the American people, the vast majority would agree with you on that. Mr. Strzok, you were removed from the Mueller investigation, correct?
Yes.
But for the most part, all the others that were there are still there, correct?
I can't speak to the current staffing
Well,
and
let me
personnel of
tell
the
you
special
who they
counsel.
are. Greg Andrus, who gave $1,000 to the Democrat running to hold the Senate seat previously held by Barack Obama, and $2,600 to Democrat Senator Gillibrand, and $0 to the Trump campaign. He's still there. And Rush Atkinson, who donated to the Clinton campaign, and $0 to the Trump campaign. He's still there. And Kayleigh Freeney, who contributed to both the Obama presidential campaigns and the Hillary Clinton's campaign, and $0 to the Trump campaign, still there. And Andrew Goldstein, who donated $3,300 to both Obama campaigns and $0 to the Trump campaign, still there. And Elizabeth Prelogar, who, by the way, clerked for liberal Supreme Court Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Elena Kagan, and contributed to both the Obama and Clinton campaigns, and $0 to the Trump campaign, still there. And James Quarles, who contributed to the Democratic presidential campaigns of Dukakis and Gore and Kerry and Obama and Hillary Clinton. Now, he did contribute to former Congressman Chaffetz and Allen, but he contributed $20,000 to the Democratic and Senate campaign committees and $0 to the Trump campaigns. I could go on, but I'm just about to run out of time. Suffice it to say that 9 of the 16 investigators still on the case gave to Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or to both, and none gave to Trump. Now, shouldn't such a wide disparity in political support of one party over the other give the American people concern that even though you are off the Mueller team, that the fairness and lack of bias that President Trump deserves and the American people deserve just might be lacking here?
The gentleman's out of time, but the witness may answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, what I'd tell you is this, and what I'd ask you to tell your constituents is this. I have and had no idea what contributions were made by anybody staffing the special counsel's office. What I can tell you and what I'd ask you to relay to your constituents is the men and women that I saw, the attorneys, the agents, the analysts, were the most remarkable, bright, patriotic, hardworking people that I've ever had the honor of working with. I want you to know, and whether people leave here believing me or not, I was absolutely and remained absolutely convinced that the efforts and the personnel who make up the office of the special counsel are the best in America. And I have complete faith and confidence that they will arrive at the truth and that they will do that well.
Gentleman from Ohio yields back. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I don't know where to start. If I could give you a Purple Heart, I would. You deserve one. This has been an attack on you in a way to attack Mr. Mueller and the investigation that is to get at Russia collusion involved in our election, which is what this committee should be looking at. A direct strike at democracy and what this country's about, and free and fair elections, keeping us independent of who is our foe, not our competitor, our foe. I just returned from the OSCE in Berlin. And there is little question among our allies and people and diplomats throughout Europe that Russia is an antagonistic country that is trying to wreak havoc in the Baltics, in the Balkans as well. They tried to use assassination to try to influence the elections in Montenegro, what they've done in Ukraine with Crimea and the Donbass, what they've done in Georgia, what they've done in Moldova. They are the bad guys. And you've dedicated most of your life to working in counterintelligence. One of your big cases, I think, was Donald Heathfield and Tracy Ann Foley. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was, how many Russian folks did you expose and bring to justice?
Well, that was a long, large investigation that a tremendous number of extraordinary people worked on. There were ultimately, I believe, 10, roughly, Russian illegals that were here, but I started out in the early days and was honored to start out, and again, that ran a decade.
And how many Russians were deported for that?
Sir, if memory serves, 10 or 11, but I'm not certain on that number.
Pretty good case that you worked on. A good job.
Case.
Did you work on Russia primarily when you were at the FBI in that area?
At that period, early.
When I was young, I thought my country was the best on the planet. And I grew up singing a song called Nothing to Envy. And I was very proud. In school, we spent a lot of time studying the history of Kim Il-sung, but we never learned much about the outside world. Except that America, South Korea, Japan are the enemies. Although I often wondered about the outside world, I thought I would spend the entire my life in North Korea until everything suddenly changed. When I was 7 years old, I saw my first public execution, but I thought my life in North Korea was normal. My family was not poor, and myself had never experienced hunger. But one day in 1995, my mom brought home a letter from a Caucasus sister. It read, "When you read this, our 5 family members will not exist in this world because we haven't eaten for the past week. We are lying on the floor together, and our bodies are so weak. We are waiting to die." I was so shocked. This was the first time I heard that people in my country were suffering. Soon after, when I was walking past the train station, I saw something terrible that still can't erase from my memory.
ទុកសពសត្វដែលមានជីវិតរស់នៅ
Good evening. Thank you. 1 year ago, I introduced my father when he declared his candidacy. In his own way and through his own sheer force of will, he sacrificed greatly to enter the political arena as an outsider. And he prevailed against a field of 16 very talented competitors. For more than a year, Donald Trump has been
Thank you all so much. It's so amazing to be with you tonight and say a few words about my father and your nominee for president. Please excuse me if I'm a little nervous. When I graduated college a couple of months ago, I never expected to be here tonight addressing
Facts Verse presents Strict Rules that Kim Jong-un's wife has to follow. Number 1. First Lady Duties. The First Lady in every country has a very important role. They're just as much public figures as their husbands. Ri Sol-ju is Kim Jong-un's wife, who is the leader of North Korea. Before her marriage to the leader, there really isn't much of her personal life that's known. According to a few sources, she studied music and singing in China. She even visited South Korea before she got married for a cheerleading competition. It's not strange for there to be secrecy surrounding the First Lady of North Korea. Kim Jong-un's father kept his multiple wives completely out of the public eye. There are many rules that need to be followed by the First Lady of North Korea. Number 2. An arranged marriage. Ri Sol-ju didn't meet her husband during a night out with friends, she didn't meet him in college, and she didn't meet him on a bus. While these are common ways that couples around the world meet, Kim Jong-un and Ri Sol-ju's first meeting wasn't romantic at all. In fact, the marriage was arranged. When Kim Jong-un's father found out that he was suffering from a deadly illness, he arranged his son's marriage immediately. The couple was married before the old man died. Number 3. A rule that everyone must follow in North Korea. There is one rule that every citizen must follow in North Korea. If couples want to be married, they cannot marry on February 16th, which is Kim Jong-il's birthday, who is the grandfather of Kim Jong-un. They also cannot get married on April 15th, which is Kim Jong-il's birthday, who is Kim Jong-un's father. On these days, people are required to bring flowers to their statues and wear the cultural attire. Number 4. It is Ri Sol-ju's responsibility to portray perception of her husband through her personality. Kim Jong-un wants people to look at him as a moderate and progressive man. Because of this, he often has 2 women by his side, his wife and his sister. His sister represents his conservative side by wearing traditional clothing and helping to make the country's policies. His wife represents his liberal side. She wears Western clothing. She has an expensive hairdo, and she tries to portray his lighter side. Number 5. She had to shed her birth name when she was married. Of all the strict rules that Kim Jong-un's wife has to follow, this is the craziest. In just about every culture, a wife will take her husband's last name after marriage, but she will keep her first name. Ri Sol-ju had to take it a step further. When she was married, she had to drop her first and last name. This is so she can maintain her privacy and everything in her past will remain a secret. Number 6. She cannot see her own family. Most adult children love to see their parents on a regular basis. Families often get together on holidays and other special occasions. Ri Sol-ju's situation is different. Her father is a professor and her mother is a gynecologist. Due to her tight schedule, she's not able to see her parents. Due to all of her responsibilities as the wife of the supreme leader, it's impossible for her to take out time in her life to see her family. Her family is placed under secret status, too. That's so the government can maintain her privacy. Number 7. Her public appearances are restricted. The First Lady of the United States often makes public appearances on her own. That's not the case with Ri Sol-ju. While she does appear with her husband quite often, you never will see her alone. Her children are also never seen unless they are with their father. North Korea works very hard to be sure that the leader's family is kept private. Number 8. There are security protocols in place. When it comes to security, North Korea takes it just as seriously for Ri Sol-ju and her children as the White House does for the First Lady and the first children. Because North Korea is a communist state, all of the information given to the citizens is controlled by the government. Since there is always tension between North Korea and other countries, the Supreme Leader and his entire family are always targets. To keep the family safe, there are very strict protocols in place. Number 9. She visits mourning sites. Ri Sol-ju very rarely makes public appearances, but when she does, it's usually to the memorial site for her father-in-law and her grandfather-in-law. She is required to visit these sites on anniversaries to leave flowers. Number 10. Her children. There have been several reports that Ri Sol-ju was forced to have a child immediately after she got married. There was also a great deal of pressure for her to have a son. A son is the only child who can carry on the family dynasty. When she's carrying a child, she's not allowed to go out in public. Some people believe that Kim Jong-un doesn't want people to see her when she is carrying the extra pregnancy pounds. Others believe that he's worried that somebody will try to hurt his wife and his heir. There's not much information about their children at all. Former NBA star Dennis Rodman visited North Korea a few times. He's very well acquainted with Kim Jong-un, and during one of his visits, he stated that Jong-un's daughter sat on his lap. He also stated that his wife has a very soft voice. Number 11. Her past has literally been erased. When Ri Sol-ju married Kim Jong-un, the government went to great lengths to hide everything they could about her past. It's been reported that she was once part of a band, and they even released an album. Immediately after she was married, all of the CDs were found and destroyed. The government doesn't want anyone to know who she was before she was married. The last thing that Kim Jong-un wants is for skeletons in his wife's closet to come out. He thinks this will make him appear weak and stupid for marrying a woman with a sordid past. Subscribe for more.
Because I know that in her heart, she's doing this because she works for you. She is asking every single one of you in Arizona for the privilege of serving you. that you are the one who is hiring her, and she'll never forget that. That when you look at the challenges with the border, you hear people like Kamala Harris saying, well, the border is secure. Even as a normally biased reporter says, well, hold on a second. We're seeing millions of people, record high numbers of people illegally crossing the border. How can you say it's secure? She says, well, it's secure. This is the same kind of fantasy lies that we're hearing from those in power when they say, we're passing the Inflation Reduction Act. When every one of you knows, every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to fill up your gas tank, every time you're realizing that every dollar you earn is worth less and less as inflation continues to rise. So it doesn't matter what sticker they place on a bill or how they try to message it. They are so far out of touch with the reality of the challenges that we're facing in our everyday lives that they have forgotten their purpose. They do lie. And why is it? Why do they lie? Because they care more for their power than they do for the people. And that's where I have found so much hope and inspiration, whether we're talking about the divisiveness coming from the Democratic Party, using identity politics to tear us apart, racializing everything. Every single problem, unfortunately, now has been reduced to race. So much so that they're using our taxpayer dollars to go into our elementary schools and tell kids that you are either the oppressor or the oppressed because of the color of your skin. That you're either privileged or a victim because of the color of your skin, fomenting racism. We got Hawaii in the house tonight. It is a great day to be an American. There is one thing that we share in common, and it is that pride in who we are as Americans. It is that pride in the foundation of this country and our God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. And it is our belief in our potential for our future. Because that potential lies in each and every one of our hearts, and it lies within each and every one of our hands and our voices. So no matter how much the establishment in Washington, the partisan, powerful elite, the special corporate interests seek to drown out our voices, we, the people, hold the power in our hands. And every one of you are proof of that. I'm so glad to be here tonight, and a few people asked me as I was coming here, they found out I was coming here, they're like, you're going to support Kari Lake. That seems a little odd. Do you agree? No, it's not odd. And that was my answer to this reporter who asked me that question. I said, it's only odd if you're focused on the wrong things. If you're paying attention, you recognize that what we share in common, Kari and I and every one of you, is that pride. And it is the courage that comes with that pride. It is having clear eyes to recognize the very real problems that we face. It is clear eyes to recognize the threats to our safety, to our borders, to our communities, to our families and our kids that are coming from today's so-called woke radical Democrat Party, and why it is so important for us to have strong leaders in power now. Strong leaders who are accountable solely to the people, solely to you, not to those who believe that they deserve power. And we've seen it. I know you've seen it here in Arizona. You guys had a hard-fought primary election. And I know we're seeing it certainly in Washington. And this isn't something that's just left to one party or another. It's to people who have had their stranglehold on power for so long, they have forgotten who is most
Make your way out there quickly. Do you also know that it's the first blood moon in 3 years on election morning?
Wow.
So there'll be a big red blood moon on election morning, November 8th. Tell me that's an accident.
Wow.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I read a lot of random things.
He's just seen his eyes. I don't know if you could see his eyes as he described that.
Well, we'll all be in a different state, each of us. You
Correct.
will be in Florida. I will be in Wisconsin. You will be in Pennsylvania. We're going to be doing diners and getting the pulse of all the American people on election day.
I'll still never forget my diner in Ohio in 2016. That's how long I've been in these parts.
What happened?
Well, it was election day when Trump won. And we were talking to voters who were still undecided that morning whether they were going to go Trump or Hillary. And the last segment of the morning on that show was a voter saying, I'm going Trump, who had been undecided all morning long. And that's how the show ended that day. And in 2016, that's
wow, that's amazing foreshadowing.
I'm just
If
saying.
only Hillary was watching that morning.
Yes.
She could have prepared better for the loss.
There's a reason Pete brings up Ohio. It's because now we turn our attention to that state and bring in J.D. Vance. He's the Senate candidate for the state of Ohio. Good morning, J.D.
Good morning.
Glad to have you on the show this morning. Let's talk about what you believe is the top issue for your voters in the state of Ohio and what's going to make their decision on Tuesday.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, of course, a lot of crises in the country. But the thing that I'm hearing most about is the cost of everything. So this terrible inflation crisis, of course, the cost of gas, the cost of groceries, the cost of eggs. You know, a year and a half ago, a dozen eggs were about $1.50 in the state of Ohio. Now they're over $4 in a lot of places in the state of Ohio. So people are just very upset that they can't afford the basic things that they need to get through the day. And Ohio is also a big energy producing state. And so people understand instinctively that when you destroy American energy independence, you put a lot of Ohio workers out of a job, but you also raise the prices of everything else. And so they're looking at Joe Biden and my Democrat opponent, Tim Ryan, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline and begging Saudi Arabia and Venezuela for oil and gas that we have right here at home. And they're saying, what gives here? Why are we doing this?
Well, J.D., Joe Biden doubled down on that yesterday. So they haven't, I mean, Hillary Clinton talked about it in 2016. Here's Joe Biden yesterday, alongside that clip, talking about shutting down coal. Watch.
It's also now cheaper to generate electricity from wind and solar than it is from coal and oil, literally cheaper. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar.
I'm the only candidate which has a policy about how to bring economic opportunity using clean, renewable energy as the key into coal country, because we're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business.
So, J.D., the closing argument for the top Democrat in the country 4 days out from the election is we're shutting down your coal plants.
In the midst of an energy crisis,
yes.
And as things are about to get a lot colder in the state of Ohio and other parts of the country, it's completely ridiculous, especially when we consider that China and India are opening up coal-fired plants by the week. Why are we shutting this stuff down when we have plenty of it here? We could get it out of the ground with Ohio hands and Ohio workers, and yet you have the Biden administration attacking our energy independence. Here's what I think this is really about, guys. It's really about they don't like the people who do coal. They don't like the people who mine coal. They don't like the people who actually work in the energy sector. And so they've convinced themselves of this economic fantasy so that they can put a lot of hardworking Ohioans out of a job. The reason I want to go to the Senate is to prevent it from happening. And it's not just about the jobs, as important as that is. Because the energy crisis is a big part of the overall inflation crisis, if we're able to get back to energy independence, we're going to see groceries getting lower. We're going to see our farmers able to make ends meet. We're going to see the price of gas come down. It's all connected. Bad economic policy begets a lot of the misery that people are suffering. That's why we need to win big in 4 days and turn this country around.
Yeah, I mean, people aren't stupid. I know they think we are. We played those clips from Joy Reid. They get that energy is up, and that's making everything else more expensive. It's not hard to figure out. You mentioned China and India, but Europe spent 500 billion euros on renewables, and now they're starting to mine again. They're actually tearing down their wind farms and setting up mines. So, I mean, I don't understand why they can't figure that out. A lot of people are wondering, JD, okay, what can a Republican majority do? I want to play a clip from Art Laffer because he has some ideas of what people like you should do if and when you're elected as soon as you get into office? I want to get your thoughts on it on the other side.
I would do the legislation to undo the energy policies of the president and his administration. I would also do one to undo the damage done by the tax, by the increase in the funding of the IRS and the $87,000 new there. I would go through program by program in a separate piece of legislation on each one and put that bill to undo the Build Back Better baby bill piece by piece by piece to make sure that all the Dems vote against it or for it or whatever they're going to do, and then make Biden veto every one of those bills.
JD, I like this, piece by piece, instead of these big giant bills that people can hide behind.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And here's the thing here. What people don't realize is, yes, Joe Biden will still be president, but we will have a lot of leverage. I think the American people are about to give us a mandate because they're so unhappy with the direction of the country. When Republicans control the House and Republicans control the Senate, we need to act like it. We need to actually use the authority the American people have given us. If Joe Biden vetoes a couple of pieces of legislation, fine, let him do it. Let's at least have the debate about how to get back to energy independence, about how to draw down this terrible inflation crisis. You mentioned Europe. It's a national security issue, too. When you beg every tin-pot dictator in the world for energy that we have here in Ohio, you make America weaker on the world stage, too. So across a whole host of issues, I think Republicans need to act like we have the majority because we're about to get it, and the American people aren't giving it to us to warm seats.
Yeah.
Well, JD, energy independence, inflation, crime, these are the issues that you're hearing from your constituents, potential constituents, that we're hearing from people that we talk to when we go out and do diners and talk to voters across the country. Democrats, though, think there's a different message. There's a different priority for voters. They think this election is about a threat to democracy. Watch this.
Make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot for all of us.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot. Think about this.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is actually on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot.
And democracy is on the ballot.
Do you believe that democracy is on the ballot in Utah?
It is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot this year in America.
Somebody's got to tell voters what they need to hear, which is that democracy is on the ballot.
Well, the talking point went out, and that was actually the benign version of reiterating the talking point. There was others we played this morning, JD, a historian at MSNBC that said soon our children will be arrested and possibly killed.
Yes.
So can you translate? How exactly is democracy on the ballot?
Well, first of all, we need to find whatever all those people are smoking and make it a Class 1 controlled substance in this country because that is some scary, scary stuff. But look, this is a joke. Democracy is under threat, according to Joe Biden and everybody else, when the American people are unhappy and vote the way that they want to make the country better. That's not democracy being under threat. That's actually the realization of democracy. When you screw up, you get a chance to govern, and you mess it up, the American people penalize you. That's a good thing, according to our system, not a bad thing. And here's the game that they're trying to play. They know that their policies have been a failure. They have no agenda to run on, so they're running on this distraction, which is really, if you think about it, it's a criticism of the American people. How dare you vote for a better life for yourself and your children? I don't think it's going to work, and nor should it.
Like Enos Cantor, I think I'm going to change my name to Democracy and run for something. I'd be on everyone's ballot. Not a bad idea. Okay, so Fox News releases power rankings, JD, and your race is against Tim Ryan, is a lean Republican. So should things go the way we think they will, voters turn out and vote for you. What is the first thing you would do following a victory? What's your focus?
Yeah, so we talked about the energy crisis, which affects Ohio in particular, but I've also got to talk about the border crisis here, and we have to get control of the southern border. You know, Ohio is the third state when it comes to fentanyl overdose deaths in our country. We know that the cartels are bringing this fentanyl into our country through that wide open southern border. Joe Biden and Tim Ryan have encouraged that wide open border activity, and we've got to shut it down. I really think that we have to, as a country, go to war against those cartels, shut down the border, or we're not going to have a country anymore. I mean, we're losing over 100,000 of our citizens, a lot of them healthy young people. If we don't get control over that issue, over that crazy border, we are going to live with the consequences for decades to come.
Really quickly, JD, how do you do that? even if Republicans gain control of the Senate and the House, Joe Biden remains president of the United States. How do you then, as a senator, granted in the majority, but with an executive that is a Democrat, change what's happening at the border?
I think we use our leverage. We tell Joe Biden that he doesn't get another dime for his priorities unless he does his job at the southern border. We have to be willing to take a stand on this.
Yeah, you know, JD, when you talked about oil, you said this is a national security problem. The border is too, and not just for some of the obvious reasons of, you know, we've had suspected terrorists coming over. We are actually turning, because we're empowering the cartels, Mexico into a narco state. The cartels have more power than ever, and it's influencing the Mexican government. I think it is a big issue, but you have young children. And all of us have children on this couch. And I think the education situation and the way education money has been weaponized to indoctrinate our children on some really weird things is also a big sleeper issue.
It's a huge sleeper issue. I'm one of these crazy people who thinks that our schools should make our kids smarter, not brainwash them. And unfortunately, a lot of American schools are going in the wrong direction. I think there are a lot of mama and papa bears out there who are very angry about this. And I agree, they're going to come out to vote. But we've got to do that. November the 8th, guys, jdvance.com.
All right. JD, real quick follow-up on what Will asked about. Is the debt ceiling and raising it maybe one of those points where you have a stare down with Biden on things like the border?
Look, I think when we have a debt ceiling negotiation, we really do have to have a conversation about what our priorities are and what the government is using those tax dollars that we keep on funding via a debt ceiling increase. But I also think it's the nature of having a majority. It's just that we have an additional leverage point to use over the Biden administration because they have to negotiate with us to get what they want. And it's basic negotiation. We just need to not roll over every time they need something. We actually have an ability to get something that our voters sent us to Washington to do.
Yeah.
Does that mean you need a new leader in the Senate as well once you get the majority?
Well, let's see what actually happens, of course. You know, what we really need to do is kick Chuck Schumer out of majority leadership, and we'll see what happens on the Republican side. But I'm very confident we're going to have some solid Republican senators ready to do the things the American people need us to do.
All right.
JD Vance, great to talk to you this morning. Good luck on Tuesday in Ohio.
Thanks, JD.
Thank you,
guys.
JD.
All right.
I do think they're going to need a new leader
I
to
do
do
too.
all the things that he says that he wants to do.
That's one of the big, we talked about infighting earlier. What will it look like? Should Republicans get a majority and then a strong majority? Many of which the candidates that majority will be built on were candidates that Mitch McConnell said should not be candidates.
That's right.
Or were bad candidates and didn't support for or work for. I think, I don't know who that other person is.
Could be Rick Scott.
Be Rick Scott. That's the name that's out there. But and President Trump has
He's
made
great.
very clear his dissatisfaction with Mitch McConnell, and he continues to be the standard bearer. So it's not inevitable.
I think the American people are dissatisfied with Mitch McConnell.
All right, let's turn now to a few additional headlines. We'll start with this. 20 people around the street unable this quarter to provide Congress and the American people with a full accounting of this.
How could you? The Taliban controls everything, including those NGOs, if that's where the funds went.
Yeah. That's
Right.
actually, it's abominable.
And the Astros return to Houston for Game 6 of the World Series. The team is now one win away from their second championship title in franchise history. Pitcher Framber Valdez gets the start for Houston, and ace Zach Wheeler will be on the mound for the Phillies in this win-or-go-home match for Philadelphia. Catch Game 6 tonight at Minute Maid Park. Coverage begins at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, only on Fox.
What a great sports day.
Yeah.
3:30 is, Tennessee, Georgia. Then you can flip over to the World Series.
Yep. You'll be in bed, so will I, but
8 o'clock.
not.
8 o'clock.
Eight.
So I got to give you first 4 innings.
Yeah.
It's worth it. I'll read now. All right, we're gearing up for the Fox Nation Patriot Awards. I hope I have
Months
The Dubai Mall is a shopping mall in Dubai. It is the second largest mall in the world, after the Iran Mall by total land area, and the 26th largest shopping mall in the world by gross leasable area, tying with West Edmonton Mall and Fashion Island, both of which are older than it.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson's Sun. Happy Friday. What a day. And it started on the weirdest possible note. If you tuned into the Today Show this morning looking for the usual funny cat videos and trans-friendly salad recipes, you may have been surprised to find actual news being committed on your screen. In place of the segment you expected to see, fit and sexy over 70, there was NBC News correspondent Miguel Almaguer letting you know that actually that assault on Paul Pelosi in San Francisco that you read about last week, that story was a whole lot stranger than you ever imagined. According to Almaguer, citing several law enforcement sources with direct knowledge, it was Paul Pelosi who opened the door for police when they arrived. Now, you'll remember that authorities had previously told us that the intruder, David DePape, had broken into Paul Pelosi's bedroom on the third floor of the house and woken him up. Yet somehow both Pelosi and DePape were on the ground floor by the time police got there. Moreover, according to Almaguer, Pelosi and DePape had been together in the house for at least half an hour. And yet, strangely, they both seemed fine. With police present, Almaguer reported, Paul Pelosi, quote, did not immediately declare an emergency or leave his home. Instead, he, quote, walked back several feet toward the assailant and away from police. What? Paul Pelosi walked away from the police and toward David DePape? What could possibly explain behavior like that? And what were the two doing for the 30 minutes before police arrived? Under normal circumstances, we wouldn't want to know. Paul Pelosi's personal life is his business. It's not our business. We've got nothing against the guy. We believe in privacy. But unfortunately for Paul Pelosi, there's an election coming next week, and his wife's allies immediately politicized the assault against him. They tried to tell us that David DePape, a homeless, illegal alien nudist drug addict who had a BLM flag hanging near the broken school bus that he lives in, was actually a right-wing hitman inspired by Q, determined to act out the violence of January 6th in Nancy Pelosi's own home. They told us that, like we'd believe it. Then the President of the United States went on television and said it again. It's laughably absurd. Russia bombed its own pipeline. Okay.
Comedians always joke about the First Lady